Hey everyone, before we start this episode, we have a quick little announcement. If you've ever wanted to work with the Command Zone team, we have 2 fresh new opportunities for you.
Yeah, some really cool stuff. If you are a graphic designer, we are looking for freelancers to help us out with things like thumbnails and all the graphic design work we do here. This is a remote position, so you can be located anywhere. There are links for that opportunity in the show notes. And then we're also looking to hire a full-time position for somebody to join our art department. Now, you would need to be located in LA for this job because you're going to be here in our office working with Lady Danger directly and the rest of our production team on all kinds of things like building our sets, wardrobe, costumes, things like that. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, again, all those links are in the show notes.
All right, on to the show.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
What's up, everybody? You're watching / listening. Maybe you're listening. Does anyone listen to podcasts anymore?
People do.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I listen to podcasts
Yeah.
on my app.
To those driving
Yes,
or cooking
or
at
mowing
work.
the lawn. Not at work. You got to pay attention to work. Not to the Command Zone podcast, though. This is better than work. Today, we are talking about The Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. It is almost out. In fact, I'm very excited to play this across every single thing that I can. And we're going to talk about a brand new mechanic, the one that is sort of the leading mechanic of the set. And not just the set, but also of the story of The Lord of the Rings. It's about the One Ring itself and how the ring tempts you. So it's an interesting new mechanic. It demonstrates the growing power every time you get tempted by the One Ring to rule them all. And we're going to talk about all the best cards that work with this mechanic, the Ring Tempts You, and also commanders that the ring is a part of their lore as well as something we can talk about. Okay, cool.
Lots of cards to talk about. Lots of new exciting ones from Lord of the Rings. A lot of the cards we're going to be talking about today are from that set because they're about the ring. And you can get all of those cards at cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has the best selection for singles and sealed product. I love Card Kingdom, especially when a new set comes out because I'm building a new deck. And I like to make a huge cart and ship it all at once from one place so it arrives at one time safely, and I can get it sleeved and I can get it into a deck box and I can play it at my next game store. I know at my next game night. Also at my next game store.
You churn through game stores like nobody's business.
I keep getting kicked out of game stores.
That'd be amazing.
Wouldn't that be funny if that came out and they're like, yeah, Rachel Weeks has been thrown out of like 9 game stores. Good
For
thing.
winning too much.
That's it. Again, if you are as excited about this set as we are, if you're buying Lord of the Rings stuff, if you're pre-ordering Lord of the Rings singles, go to cardkingdom.com/command.
Yep, and once you get all that stuff, there's Lord of the Rings themed stuff from ULTRAPRO. You can go to ultrapro.com/command or check out your local game store. They probably are going to be stocking some of the sweet playmats, sleeves, deck boxes, and more. They're, of course, going all out because this is an epic collaboration. We have 2 of the playmats in front of us. I have one of the golems, and you have the One Ring.
Call of the Ring.
Call of the Ring, that's right.
Yeah, it's Frodo. This one is a little foily. It's got that little shimmer
the holofoil
on
shimmer.
it.
It's very cool.
Amazing. There's some really, really fantastic art in this set, and it's on playmats.
Yeah, and ULTRAPRO is the place to get it. They are going to have it on their website. It'll probably sell out pretty quickly. So if you want to get it, make sure you are signed up for their newsletter and just paying attention to their website. Otherwise, I'm sure you're going to be able to find a lot of this product around anyway. Hopefully, they're making a lot of it. ultrapro.com/command, the place to go for getting all of your product to protect your cards, put them on the playmat, put them in the deck box, and really just theme out whatever deck you're making. I feel like if there's any set to theme out your deck box and your card sleeves and everything else with the commander, it's going to be this one. So ultrapro.com/command. And the last way to support the show is directly at patreon.com/commandzone. We love our patrons. We talk to them all the time on Discord. They ask us questions there. Every single person gets access to that Discord when you sign up at our $5 a month level. And if you go to the other tiers, we've got exclusive content. We also have a tier that allows you to play spell table games with us every single month. That's been really, really awesome. In fact, I feel like I've just become friends with some of our patrons as a result. I see them multiple times on spell table, and I'm like, hey, what are you bringing this time? Oh, that's so cool. And then we share card tips and stuff. It feels like a real play group. So you can find all that at patreon.com/commandzone. We also shout out one lucky patron every single episode. So this episode of The Ring Tempts You is temptedly dedicated to Jeremiah Benson. Jeremiah, you rock. Okay, the ring tempts you. Let's talk about the mechanic.
Yeah, so they have these little tokens that come in all of the. There's so many of these coming out of the packs.
Yeah.
And the backside explains the mechanic, and the front side is the different abilities. So I'm just going to read what the Ring Tempts You does. And it says, the Ring Tempts You. As the ring tempts you, you get an emblem named the Ring. If you don't have one, then your emblem gains its next ability, and you choose a creature you control to become or remain your ring bearer.
Yep. So on the text of a card, it will say the literal words, the ring tempts you. When that happens, you follow the instructions here. And there's also some extra rules, just in case you needed to know them, underneath it on the backside here. So the ring can tempt you even if you don't control a creature. So if you notice above, it says the ring, you choose a creature you control to become or remain your ring bearer. If you have no creatures on the battlefield, you can still be tempted by the ring, you still gain the emblem, and the ring still gains its next ability. And the next part of this says, the ring gains its abilities in order from top to bottom. Once it gains an ability, it has that ability for the rest of the game. So you can sort of treat the ring like a equipment card in a way, and that it has abilities on it. And every time the ring tempts you, you're adding more text to that equipment card, and it's going to have that text for the rest of the game. The next piece of text says, each time the ring tempts you, you must choose a creature if you control one. So if you have no creatures, it doesn't matter, but if you do have a creature, the ring has to be going on that creature. And the last bit of text here, each player can only have one emblem named the ring and only one ring bearer at a time. So even
There's only one ring.
There's only one ring, yeah. Well, there can technically be two if you're playing against someone that also gets tempted by the ring.
That's true. You guys each have a ring.
On your battlefield, there is only one ring. It is an emblem. As an emblem, it is extremely hard. In fact, it may be impossible to interact with. Your opponent can't like steal it or take it or destroy it. It is always going to be there.
It is an emblem, and like we said, it gains those abilities each turn. So once it's gained, or each time the ring tempts you. So when you get to 4, if you have all 4 abilities on your ring, you're just fully stacked ring, and it every time you move it from one creature to another, it gets all 4 of those abilities.
Yep. If it has the ring, it's not like the creature gains it, is whatever the ring is attached to. The ring itself has the abilities like an equipment. So if you choose new ring bearer, the last one loses the abilities and the new person gets it, just like you're wearing the ring.
Yeah.
All right.
So that is the ring. We're going to break down the abilities here so you know exactly what the 4 different abilities of the ring are, starting with the first one.
All right. The ring has tempted me once. I choose a creature on my battlefield, and it gains this ability.
Your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power.
Okay, so Skulk makes a return.
Yeah, it's a legendary Skulk.
Yeah, Skulk was an old mechanic from Shadows over Innistrad or something. I forget where it came from, but it basically says the exact same text that your creature cannot be blocked by creatures with greater power. So if you have a 1/5, you cannot be blocked by anything with 2 power or greater.
Yeah, and this is super flavorful because in the books, it's the best ring bearers are hobbits or are sort of the most unassuming. So the lowest power creatures actually make great ring bearers, and Skulk is better the less power you have.
Yeah, if you look at all of the 3 Frodos in the set, so there's Frodo Adventurous Hobbit, Frodo Baggins, and Frodo Sauron's Bane. They all have 1 power.
Yeah, there's another one
Frodo
too,
Hero
and I think he's a 2/2.
But he's great too because he has an indestructible clause on him.
Yeah, he's great. In a totally different way. That's like souped up Frodo.
Yeah, so very cool. This makes a lot of sense. Also, I believe you turn invisible when you put the ring on, so maybe that can add to the skulkiness.
Yeah,
Can't see
a little sneaky evasion.
Sneaky.
So it's sort of interesting that the fact that it just makes something legendary. Obviously, if it's already legendary, it doesn't change anything, but you could make a regular creature legendary, which obviously works with legendary synergies or any sort of legendary matters deck that you have. It also reduces the activation cost of the Neo lands, like
Boseiju, Who Endures, Takenuma.
Because they cost less for each legendary that you control. So super relevant in Commander, but a little bit of a corner case.
Yeah, in general, Commander, it's always been like, oh, cool, Legendary Matters decks. Well, guess what? Your Commander is legendary. No worries. You're always going to have a legendary creature out there. And as we've seen in past, 2 years, the amount of legendary creatures has just skyrocketed. So most games are going to be filled with legendary creatures, but there are corner cases that do care about this. Mox Amber, a Mox is going to get turned on because you now have a legendary creature. Invasion of Fior, I thought was an interesting one. This is the battle from the last set. It's a board wipe, and you can choose to destroy all legendary or non-legendary or both. So if you make a creature legendary, blow up all non-legendaries, yada yada.
Yeah, you could like, if you want to save your Academy manufactor or something like that, you're like, I'll make him my ring bearer and I'll blow up all non-legendary stuff. And you get to sort of keep one little value creature.
Yeah, there's a commander called Radadrabik of Urborg that says whenever another legendary creature you control dies, you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary, and it's a zombie 2/2 in addition to its other colors and types. So again, you can make that token that comes in legendary with the ring and then have that die, re-trigger Radadrabik.
That's super slick. I had not seen that.
Yeah, so Boromir allows you to sacrifice him, and then you get tempted by the ring. So if you have Boromir and Radadrabik out, you sacrifice Boromir, Radadrabik sees its legendary, makes a copy that's not legendary, then the Ring Tempts You, makes that non-legendary copy legendary, and you can do this infinitely.
So you get infinite dice triggers, infinite ETBs, and the Ring Tempts You infinite times, which doesn't really matter. You just get all 4 abilities.
Yeah, but good job, Boromir. He's really good at dying, I guess. So.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Bean certainly is.
Sean Bean certainly is, yeah. Okay, so that's Legendary Skulk. Probably the least powerful of all the abilities, but still very relevant because sometimes you do need to get in for that damage.
And I think this is the most important ability because this says, like, if you only have one card in your whole deck that says the Ring Tempts You, then this is the one that matters.
That's right. You're only going to get to this one. That's actually a really good point.
Right.
Unless you have a recurring way to have the ring tempt you or a lot of cards that tempt you, this is generally the only one they're going to get to.
Right.
Like you said, if you only play one card that says the ring tempts you, this is it.
Yeah. So Skulk should matter in your deck, or if you're doing like a neat legendary trick like Radadrabik, then that's the only one that you're really looking at. But let's move on to the second ability because we're going to be talking about decks that really want the ring to tempt you. And this one says, whenever your ring bearer attacks, draw a card, then discard a card.
All right. So this is kind of like Smuggler's Copter, except it doesn't do it on blocks. And it's very powerful. Drawing and discarding is, it's a merfolk looter. It's one of the most classic ways to get through your deck and to just see a lot more cards and be putting yourself in advantage.
Yeah, you're drawing first and then discarding, which is so much more powerful than discarding and then drawing. This is great in graveyard decks. This is great in draw matters decks. This is just good selection in any deck.
Yeah, it's just generally good value. And so the only thing you have to be doing is attacking with your ring bearer specifically. It's not like a tap ability.
And it still has Skulk, so likely it won't be blocked by something big enough to kill it.
Yeah, and you have a choice between 3 players, right? There's probably someone you can attack that you're not going to have to worry about it dying to.
Right, yeah.
Okay, the next ability is pretty powerful. It's whenever your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller sacrifices it at end of combat. So damage will have been done if, let's say, it's a 1/3 against a 5/5. The 1/3 will die if it has the ring on it, but the 5/5 owner has to sack it at the end of combat.
The interesting thing here is it still has Skulk, right? So it can only be blocked by little things. So if you have like a 1/3 that is your ring bearer and you are on your third one and they attack and they block with like a 1/2, that's sort of the only time.
That's right. My example doesn't work, by the way.
You can't block with a 5/5.
Yeah, that's right. It has to be a 1/5.
So it's like their little stuff. Now they have to be careful because they don't just get these free blocks on your little guy anymore.
Yeah, but also they may not care to block your littler guy because it's not that much damage. However, if you do strap the ring to like a 6/6 or a bigger creature, then pretty much most stuff can block it.
Right.
So, but this just disincentivizes blocking, which means you're going to even more so get that draw discard. This one isn't as powerful, I don't think, but it helps enhance the other abilities.
Right. This one, it buffs the evasion, but only sort of a small bit, unless you are buffing up your ring bearer or you're doing like the Frodo determined hero thing, which is the Frodo that isn't a 1-power Frodo.
But it says as long as it's your turn, prevent all damage that will be dealt to Frodo.
Right. And it says you may attach any equipment you control with mana value 2 or 3 to Frodo. So hypothetically, this is a big Frodo. So the Skulk isn't as good.
Would this work with like a reconnaissance where you're able to remove a creature from combat after blockers have been declared? There's probably some sneaky stuff you can do with it here. There's also cards like Dolmen's Gate and the red-white god that are stopping damage being done to your attacking creatures. So
Right.
there's other ways that can definitely enhance this as well.
Yeah.
You can also just cast Lure and make every creature able to block enchanted creature do so.
So they have to block with all their little stuff, and then they have to sacrifice all their little stuff,
Yeah.
even if you only have a little 1/3.
Unless you have a really big 6/6 or whatever, then they're blocking with like their whole board, and they
That's
all have
true.
to get sacrificed.
Lure is so fun.
Yeah,
if I can
very
sneak
much.
it into a deck, I
The
will.
Shelob deck might like it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, let's talk about the last fourth final ability on the ring that it can gain. This one is pretty consequential. Whenever your ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. Okay,
3 life?
that's a win con.
3 life is a lot, and that's in addition to the regular combat damage. So you could do up like easily 10 damage.
Yeah,
and
hit someone and then everyone loses 3 each. Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of characters, or I guess cards, that care about loss of life. Belby, Corrupted Observer, wants players to lose life, and you're going to add a bunch of colorless mana that way.
Yeah, Rakdos, Lord of Riots, does a similar thing. It reduces your creature's casting cost by the amount of damage that your opponent has taken.
Yeah, if you're doing double strike damage, that means each opponent's going to lose 6 life instead of 3 because you're hitting them twice.
This is definitely the win con for the decks that want the ring to tempt you a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing the combat damage ring tempts you thing, which a number of commanders are, you're trying to have it hit as many times as possible.
And I would say there's actually a lot of commanders that just care about combat damage. There's Timna the Weaver from the most power. I mean, I looked at like the top 20 and like 5 of these were there. Like Lathril, Blade of the Elves, seems really good considering there's a lot of elf cards as well in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Ishin, 2 Heavens is one that's just all about swinging out. And then Rogrok, son of Roga as well, he's a 0/1, so he's pretty much unblockable if you just have the ring on him.
Yeah, but he won't deal any damage.
Won't deal any damage. Yeah, got to have a little bit of power buffed onto him. But yeah, if you're a deck that likes unblockable effects, then Rogue's Passage, Whisper Silk Cloak, all of that stuff is going to make this last part of the ring very impactful. So your creature is going to swing, draw a card, discard a card, and then deal 3 to everyone on top of combat damage.
And if they deign to block it, they'll have to sacrifice creatures as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at the ring, is just say that, like, this is good in decks that care about evasion, that really want to connect with combat damage and want to do it with small creatures typically.
Yep.
Like, I think the ring is fun with like something like Toski.
Yeah.
Where it's like annoying to block and it's little and you want to deal damage so you can draw cards. and loot
Toski is
and
great
stuff.
example, yeah.
Like, I think Toski's a hilarious ring bearer, but also just a illustrates where the ring really shines.
Yeah, I was also wondering if this was like another alt win con for an aristocrat deck, because a lot of your high impact creatures like Zulaport Cutthroat is a 1/1, and so that's also a pretty good ring bearer if you're going to go that option. And draining everyone for 3 is, again, adding on to what you're already doing. Seems like it's gonna be pretty impactful.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where this shows up, because it does seem to be the kind of mechanic that people are like, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, it's a lot to
There's
keep track
just 2
of.
sides
Oh,
just
gosh.
to illustrate what this mechanic does. So I think
I don't know. It's simpler than Mutate, so
it's simpler than Mutate. I think it's probably simpler than the Initiative because it doesn't affect everybody.
yeah. And the Initiative, someone can take it from you as well. And
Yeah.
there's just like you have to be
4
stepping through
dungeons plus
Yeah.
the marker that goes around, and it is long.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think this mechanic has been received to mixed opinions.
Yeah, and again, don't forget, Lord of the Rings is being made for modern as well as a limited environment. So the ring tempting you is something that has to work across that as well as into Commander. So as a result, there's actually been a bit of criticism from players because they think, or some people, not all, that the ring is a flavor fail. Because if you remember the books, and especially for the moviegoers, which I think is the vast majority of people that are going to be coming into the set, have seen the movies more than anything else. The ring is something that does not make Frodo seem more powerful by the end of it. He is struggling with this, the weight of this. It is hurting him. He is turning against his friend. He's being manipulated. He's being drawn to Sauron in a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Gollum and you're like, Gollum isn't better for having borne the ring.
Yeah, it's true.
Gnarly looking.
Yeah, so players thought that if you're getting tempted by the ring, it should have some sort of downside, something that hurts you or hinders you in some way. So is it a flavor fail then that the ring is just something that is ultimately kind of just buffing you up and making you stronger as a result?
I think it's interesting because we see like we've never carried the ring.
Yes.
So when
I'm opening that sucker.
So when you look at like a character that's carrying the ring,
Yeah.
they're like, "Ooh, God, get rid of the ring."
Yeah,
like
oh my
Sam.
gosh. I'm so sorry you have to carry it.
Yeah.
Thank you for carrying it.
Sam keeps turning to Frodo and be like, "Oh my God, I can see it hurting you.
Yeah.
Take it off." But I think from the perspective of someone who is a ring bearer, it makes you feel more powerful.
That is a good point. And I will also note that R&D said they tested a lot of versions of the ring where it did do negative effects. And as a result, you just didn't play it.
Yeah, I mean, why would you do something like this? Is a cumulative thing. So anything that has like repeated the ring tempts you on it, like it's so much worse because of it.
Yeah.
In general, if we do stuff in Magic, we want it to be good for us.
Yeah, very rarely do you actually see players play cards that actively hurt them unless they're doing something that makes it not so.
Right. Or they're getting enough paid off. So I think that's the interesting thing is like if the ring did have downsides, it would have to be more powerful as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an emblem. So it is very difficult to interact with.
Yeah.
So it's just a very dangerous permanent to make powerful, even with downsides.
Yeah, and I will say that the ring in Sauron's hands was pretty good for him.
Yeah,
he was
felt
able
good.
to take over a lot of the world as a result. And I think if you look at the ring as well, it's not like any of these abilities are game breaking.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to the fourth is going to take a little bit, and then dealing 3 to everyone. There are cards in Magic that just outright win the game. You know, this isn't game breaking.
It's interesting.
And the other abilities are good, but they're not like, holy moly, I can't believe this is, none of this is making me go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that.
I am curious to see what this looks like in 1v1 formats. We are not a 1v1 podcast, but it is not very hard to give something skulk and have looting every turn that you cannot interact with.
Yeah.
This
True.
can turn a Thalia into a nightmare.
True. It's very true. And I remember when True Name Nemesis being printed in the Commander project was a big deal.
Yeah.
And this has some similar things, but it doesn't give hexproof. It doesn't give protection.
Yeah.
It just makes it very specifically focused on attacking and combat.
Right.
So I think they found a good balance as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if it's going to, we have to still see it play out in Commander, but
Right.
I don't have any issues with it not having downsides
Yeah.
because it's just really who's holding it and why they're holding it. We know Frodo as the ring bearer and we saw how it affected him. We forget that Sauron had the ring and it literally made him the most powerful being in all of Middle Earth, I think. So
What if the last ability just everybody got drained?
Oh,
Each
including yourself?
player loses 3 life.
yeah, I could see that happening.
That's still quite good.
Rachel, I think it's time for you to leave the podcast and join Wizards of the Coast. Because you solved it.
That is my
You solved it.
audition tape. All right, so we've got into it a little bit, but I do want to talk about it before we move on. Is this good? Is this a good mechanic? Is it powerful in multiplayer?
I think it's all right. Because you have to have the text, the ring tempts you on the card, be played multiple times in order to get to its full ability. Right now, just unblockable, pretty much, and legendary. As we've seen, like there may be some corner cases that come up with Rather Drabic and stuff, but right now that's not that amazing. So I think it's just one of those things like Mutate or any of the other like interesting mechanics. You have to build into it for it to get to its maximum power. And I don't know if we've had people had enough time to brew fully to be like, hey, this is actually way better than we thought. Right now, I think battles and sieges have more of an upside than the ring. Just
Right.
because this is one set that is coming in, and there aren't that many cards that say the ring tempts you on it that may be even playable or get played.
Yeah, I look at this and I see this similar thing where it's like, this doesn't feel broken. This doesn't feel like something that we're going to see a ton of and it really dominates the game. But I can see this be just an integral part of your game plan where you are just grinding out a little bit of value every turn.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll eat removal most of the time unless you're swinging with like a huge thing. It feels like it's going to be just a tiny bit of selection that can maybe edge you over the top.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you do, like you said, you do need to have the ring tempt you a couple of times for it to really make a dent in the long term of the game.
Yeah, maybe by like turn 8 when it's like, gosh, I've been hit by that one power creature 7 times now.
Yeah.
It's getting annoying.
And now we've been drained like
Yeah.
3 times.
Where's my ring? I'm tempted.
Yeah. I'm tempted to kill that little thing.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you kill the creature, you can't pay an equip cost to put the ring on something else. You have to be tempted by the ring.
again.
So again, we're going to look at a lot of cards today that say the ring tempts you, and just keep that in mind. This is not an equipment, even though it acts like one. You have to be tempted by the ring if your ring bearer dies to put it onto a new creature.
Yeah.
And you have to be tempted 4 times by the ring for it to gain its full power.
And we're a singleton format, and there just aren't that many cards that say the ring tempts you.
Yeah.
Even in, this is a huge set, but in order to play a singleton, the ring tempts you deck, you need a lot of cards.
Yeah, you need a lot,
ring tempts you
or
on
a way to repeatedly be tempted.
All right.
So let's kick things off with what we consider the actual best card with the ring tempts you text 100%. on it.
100%.
And it is the card that is on Rachel's playmat. It is Call of the Ring. 1 in the black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, the ring tempts you. All right, there you go. And whenever you choose a creature as your ring bearer, you may pay 2 life. If you do, draw a card. So there you go. This is immediately bearing similarities to Phyrexian Arena, Black Market Connections, Eye of Vecna, Underworld Connections. Only difference is you have to have a creature to choose in order to pay the life to draw a card.
Right.
So if you play this on turn 2 and don't have a creature on turn 3, or by turn 3, which is pretty likely, you're not going to get that card draw ability.
Right. It doesn't work until your upkeep. So you may cast it on turn 2, but even if you cast a creature on turn 3, you're still not drawing until turn 4. So it's not quite as fast as it looks.
Yeah, unless you have other cards, of course, that say the ring tempts you, in which case the second part of the Call of the Ring text just applies anytime the ring tempts you.
But the ring does tempt you even if you don't have a creature. So you cast this on and you'll get that first ability and really get the value out of the ring going.
Yeah. And this is a way to get to the four, I guess, abilities on the ring without having to do anything else but just get to your upkeep.
Yeah, I think this card is quite good.
I think so too.
And you're just willing to pay 2 life to draw a card, and the fact that you only have to spend 2 mana to do it is so efficient. A lot of the times we'll say that Phyrexian Arena is too slow for Commander these days.
And you hate playing it on turn 5 or 6 or whatever.
Because if that 3 mana is feels like so much mana at the time.
Yeah, and you have to wait for an upkeep, and
But Call of the Ring is only 2 mana, so it's easy to double spell. If you cast a 3 mana creature and the Call of the Ring on turn 5, you feel pretty good about that turn.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have to cast Phyrexian Arena and hope you have a 2-drop creature on turn 5, you feel slow.
Yeah, and Call of the Ring is going to care about other ring tempts you cards. So if you're running others, then this just makes Call of the Ring even better.
Yeah, and like I said, it may not necessarily require a ton of synergy in your deck. The Call of the Ring just makes your creatures better. Just incidentally. It's I'm going to turn your regular value creature into a looter now, or into a little evasive beater, and you don't necessarily need that synergy with it. Yeah. But there are plenty of cards in black that care about dealing combat damage, some of which we've already talked about, like Timna the Weaver.
Timna's weaving. Grim Hireling is a card that creates treasures whenever you deal combat damage to a player, very similar to the Professional Facebreaker. Nashi Moon's Scion is a commander that cares about dealing damage as well. So these are all candidates for, hey, does your deck run these? Then the ring may want to tempt you. You may want to have Call of the Ring in your deck just to get extra triggers from these value creatures.
Yeah, there's a lot of little creatures in black that say, when this deals combat damage, something happens, but they're usually 1/3s. Some of them have Death Touch, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
I've always liked Mindblade Render as a card. It's 1 in a black for a 1/3 Azra Warrior, and it's whenever your opponents are dealt combat damage, if any of that damage was dealt by a warrior, you draw a card and you lose 1 life.
Oh.
Warrior is a creature type that shows up a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
But also, Mindblade Render is a warrior, so if you can connect with it, then you can draw cards.
Yeah.
It just seems like a very tidy card to give the ring to and also get you some incidental value.
Yeah, there are some good warrior decks that definitely can make use of this. I really like your inclusion of Duran the Siege Tower here, which is a 0/5.
Duran, huh?
Doran, I don't know.
I like Duran.
Duran.
That's Los Angeles, Doran.
Ready to ride. Me and Duran. 0/5. Each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So now this is a 0/5 that is effectively a 5/5, but is still 0 power. So this thing is essentially unblockable, and will hit you for 5 as well as get all of the ring things when it attacks and stuff, which is pretty sweet.
I love this. We've never had this theory that we should have just given the ring to Treebeard.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, there are a lot of Ents and tree folk. I think they're tree folk. I don't know if they're yeah.
I think they're tree folk.
Yeah, so very cool. That seems pretty good there. And then Lathril as well. There's going to be a lot of elves that are 1/1s and stuff. So these are just people that care about combat, or decks that care about combat damage.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of this card. It's pretty cheap right now, so if you haven't picked up your copy already, I would do it.
At cardgame.com/commando.
Do it. All right, we're going to move on to the next Ring Tempts You card that is super sweet. It's Nazgûl, 2 and a black for a 1/2 creature Wraith Knight with Death Touch. When Nazgûl enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Whenever the ring tempts you, put a +1/+1 counter on each Wraith you control.
Oh.
A deck can have up to 9 cards named Nazgûl.
Very cool. Extremely thematic for the Nazgûl. So this is a creature that just ETBs and tempts you, and you can have 9 of them in your deck. Now, 9 out of 100, still pretty low, but that's consistency.
This is going to be, honestly, I think the best way to consistently have the ring tempts you over the course of many cards.
Yeah.
I think Call of the Ring is the best individual card, but if you're building a ring tempts you deck, Nazgûl are definitely in it because they're some of the most efficient way for the ring to tempt you, and it just becomes a problem. Having that many death touchers is annoying.
1/2, do a 2/3, do a 3/4. They get bigger and bigger. You're in black, you can reanimate them. There's lots of different ways to flicker them as well if you add blue into the equation.
Yeah, I really like the Nazgûl, and I think if you're going to build around them, we've seen a lot of cards that are good with multiple copies in the past. A lot of these are going to be cards that you might recognize from Relentless Rats decks.
Yep. Bloodbond March is really powerful. 2 a black-green, whenever a creature spell is played, each player returns all cards with the same name as that spell from their graveyard to play. So you have 9 Nazgûl, but you can entomb them. You can find other ways to get them into their graveyard. And now you've got multiple Nazgûl. You're going to instantly trigger up to 4 ring temps or whatever. And then blammo, you're at a full ring power. They all get +1/+1 counters, and they're huge.
The funny thing about it is the more Nazgûl you have, the worse ring bearers they make.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like they get bigger and bigger and are like,
I
can
want
you
one."
carry the ring? No.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't even come in as 1/2s if you have other ones out because they get a 2/3.
They get the counters for like
yeah,
right
so
away.
the Nazgûl is a 2. It says
almost
1/2.
immediately.
Yeah, it instantly becomes a 2/3 because it is a Wraith that sees the ring tempting you.
A 3-mana 2/3 with Death Touch and an ETB ability is pretty strong.
Yeah, and you can have 9 of them. Pretty good. Echoing Return is a similar card. Return target creature card and all other cards with the same name of that card from your graveyard to your hand.
I like this one a lot. A Secret Salvage. 3 black for a
classic.
sorcery. Exile target non-land card from your graveyard. Search your library for any number of cards with the same name as that card. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. I've played a 7 Dwarves deck, and they are harder to find than you think.
So yeah, because you only had 7.
Yeah, so there's 9 now, but also a tutor like Secret Salvage is very helpful to just make sure you've got all of the Nazgûl you're looking for.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Green is particularly good at putting a lot of creatures of the same name onto the battlefield. Cards like Doubling Chant and Pack Hunt will go find cards of the same name. Bifurcate has like a really gross naked mole rat thing on it. It's great.
That's what the Nazgûl look like under the cloak.
Yeah.
Generally, though, these cards are actually really cheap because they're very rarely played in Commander. There's like, 5 decks or whatever that have the ability to put tons of a single type of creature into the deck. So as a result, you can pick these up really pretty affordably. And I'm assuming will be that way for a while because there's a lot of copies of them still out there.
Yeah. If you're not playing green, it's a little bit harder to find creatures that you're looking for. But I had a Boros 7 Dwarves deck, and I really liked Kayla's Reconstruction in that deck. It's white, X. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up to X artifacts and or creature cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So X is equal to the number that you that you put onto the battlefield, but you always look 7 deep. So if you pay 4 or 5 betting that you're going to hit at least 1 or 2 Nazgûls, you're going to get 2 Nazgûls for 5 mana.
And not just Nazgûls, artifacts or creatures.
Yeah, other stuff too. 2 mana rocks, like Esper Sentinels, just relevant creatures. But if you have a high density of creatures that are less than 3 mana or 3 mana or less, Kayla's Reconstruction becomes better.
Yeah, Ascend from Avernus has the same mana cost, but it's about returning stuff, mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then Heirloom Blade's really sweet. It's a 3-mana equipment. Our equipped creature gets +3/+1. Equip cost 1. Whenever equipped creature dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it, Wraith. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this will always redraw you a Nazgûl.
Yeah.
And if you only have 9 in the deck, that's pretty good. You may end up like flipping like 15, 20 cards before you find that next Nazgûl.
Yeah. I think Heirloom Blade is kind of underrated generally. It says like when a creature dies, draw a card.
Yeah.
It's equipped for 1.
Well, it has to share a creature.
Yeah, but if you're
type,
running
right?
like elves and scouts and stuff, like
Totally.
most of the time, if you're running a high density of creatures, you'll find something else.
Yeah.
Speaking of wraiths, though, let's talk about other wraiths that you could put in the deck.
Yeah, not just in this set have there been wraiths. Magic's had a few, and so has Warhammer.
Yeah, this one's Canoptic Wraith. 3 mana for an artifact creature wraith. It is a 2/1 that can't be blocked. And then it says, whenever this wraith deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 3 and sacrifice it. If you do, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards with the same name as a land you control and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle.
This is just great.
Just like a pretty solid wraith.
And not just that, it's going to get +1/+1 counters every time the ring tempts you. And then at some point, being an unblockable creature, it could be like a 10/9 swinging in and making everyone drain 3 while you loot and do all the other things.
It's a
with
very
the ring
good ring bearer, this
Yeah.
wraith. While all the other wraiths are getting bigger and bigger,
And they're
this one
looking
remains
at it with
unblockable.
extreme jealousy. All of the Nazgûl are like, what the crap is this thing?
What is
And it's
this
like,
robot
I'm from
wraith?"
Warhammer. And they're like, oh my goodness.
What is wrong with his
Yeah,
cloak?
what? He's kind of metal. What is? Ugh, that's strange.
Of course, you can put other wraiths from Lord of the Rings into the deck. The Witch King of Angmar is a sweet card that we're going to talk about a little bit later, so we're not going to get into it right now.
Yeah, that could be a great commander for this deck, by the way.
For
if you
sure.
wanted to just make the Wraith deck. And then you have Ring Wraiths. It's a 4/black 5/5 Wraith Knight from Lord of the Rings. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until end of turn. If its creature is legendary, its controller loses 3 life. And then whenever the ring tempts you, return Ring Wraiths from your graveyard to your hand. Kind of cool, but 6 mana.
6 mana is a lot, but you do clip something off and you can cast it multiple times, so it could be good in the deck.
Yeah.
There are also wraiths from Magic's history, many of them terrible. All of them have
Most
Swamp
of
Walk.
them terrible, yeah.
The best one is one called Idyllic Wraith.
This art is so silly.
They're awesome. I had
Thank
to
you,
put them
Ian
on
Miller.
here. 3 and a black for a 2/2 with Swamp Walk. It's a wraith. And when it damages any player, that player chooses and discards a card.
Hey, that's a pretty good ring bearer.
Pretty good.
Yeah, except it's going to become like a 10/10 with all your Nazgûls.
Still a Swamp Walk.
Yeah, and then the Dirtwater Wraith, which looks like it's out of a different game entirely. It looks like Scorpion from
It
Mortal
does.
Kombat.
It's very like Power Rangers.
It's got a whole thing vibe going. This is also 3 and a black for a 1/3 with Swamp Walk. So Swamp Walk could be relevant, by the way.
Yeah.
And just for black, it has black fire breathing, so +1/+0 until end of turn.
They're not super good, but if you want to go the wraith direction, it does exist.
I mean, both of these I could see
Getting
being in this
huge.
deck. Yeah, they're going to be huge, and then Swamp Walk, you're probably going to just one-shot someone at some
Yeah.
point with them.
I love the idea of a wraith themed deck.
That
with the
is
Nazgûl
cool.
in
But
itself.
yeah, thank you, Canoptic Wraith, for pulling out all
Being
the
a good
stops.
wraith.
Yeah, thank you, Warhammer. All right.
Yeah, let's move on to this next card.
All right, this is Ringsight. 1 a blue, black for a sorcery. The ring tempts you, and then search your library for a card that shares a color with a legendary creature you control. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Okay. So the ring tempting you, it's going to make a creature legendary. So you cast this, make a whatever, and then you get a tutor for a card that shares a color with whatever that creature is. Or if you have your commander out, then it's pretty much any card in your deck, except for colorless ones.
Right. An important thing here is that it doesn't. Yeah. So the ring tempts you is a choose. It's not a target. So if somebody like removes the thing in response, I think it remembers the card.
Yeah, the ring tempts you. So as the
It's
ring tempts you, you
choose.
get an emblem, then it gains its next ability, and you choose a creature to become or remain your ring bearer. So I don't believe they can interact with it until afterwards,
I mean, yeah.
right? Because
I
they
think
wouldn't.
so.
You'd have to cast the spell, and then the ring tempts you all resolves at the same time, I
Right.
believe. So they can't be like, oh, you chose that as your ring bearer, I'm going to kill it in
I'm going to
response.
kill it. Now it has no colors.
No, so it's going to get tempted, and then the rest of the spell resolves, and then I believe they can interact with it.
Okay.
I could be wrong. If I am wrong, then Don't tell me.
So this says basically, if you have a creature, search for a creature that shares a color with that.
Any card that shares a color with
any card that shares a color with that creature.
Yeah. Again, your commander is the most likely legendary creature on your battlefield.
But it doesn't have to be legendary because the ring will turn it legendary.
Yes, correct.
So it could be like if you have just a Dryad of the Elysian Grove or something like that, and you turn it into a legendary creature. Now you can search your library for a green card.
Yeah, or like a Crypt Ghast or black or blue card, because presumably you're going to have those colors in this deck.
Yeah, probably a black or a blue card. So it's a 3-mana tutor if you have a creature.
And it's an uncommon, which I think is actually matched to its power level here because... Yeah. Couple of bad things. One, it's a 3-mana tutor that requires 2 colors. So demonic tutor is 2 mana, sorcery, same thing. But the other bad part about this is you do have to reveal the card you're finding because the stipulation says it has to match a color or share a color with a legendary creature you control. So anytime a tutor says clarifies it has to be a specific thing or has a stipulation, you have to reveal it. Otherwise, you could just be cheating.
Right. Yeah.
So,
you have to prove that you found something that way.
Tutoring in private is great. Tutoring publicly, a little worse.
A little worse, especially when you're paying 3 mana for it and you do have to have a creature in play. So casting this on turn 3 isn't super easy.
Yeah, and not just that, but like compare it to Grim Tutor, which is just 1 black instead of 1 blue. You lose 3 life, but you get to have any card you want. You don't have to show anyone that goes direct to your hand as well.
The thing that was interesting when I was looking up these tutors is Grim Tutor is a $20 card now. It is expensive. So, and it's comparable to something like Witchclaw Talisman, which is essentially a 3-mana tutor that gives an opponent a tutor.
Yeah.
So Witchclaw Talisman is sort of the go-to budget tutor right now. It's like $2 or something like that.
Or Diabolic Tutor.
Yeah, which is a 4-mana search for anything.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Ringsight gets to live in that budget space, or it's an uncommon, so it gets to be in like Artisan Commander. I think we're not going to see a ton of Ringsight, but it's pretty solid. Like if you're playing blue-black and you like tutors and you're running deep, or you don't want to spend a ton of money on cards like Demonic Tutor or Vampiric Tutor, which are obviously better cards.
I have seen people though play a Demonic Tutor for a Soul Ring before.
Yeah.
And this card notably cannot get it because colorless is not a color.
That is true.
So,
and you can't find lands with it.
Yeah, you can't find lands. So Ringsight is actually, I think it looks much better than it actually is. But if it ends up just being like a 50-cent uncommon, then I could totally see this being a budget replacement for if you don't want to play Witchclaw Talisman and give someone else a tutor, for example.
Yeah. This is a card that if you put it in your deck, you know exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Where you're looking for one thing in your deck and it's not an artifact.
And there will be times where you play this and only have one color creature out and you actually can look for even less stuff as well. So there will be times where the Ringsight is not perfect. It's a little blurry. You know, you're like, I can kind of see what I want, but it's a little ghostly out there.
But I'm going to have to search for something else instead.
Yeah, the ghosts in the movies were green, right?
Yeah, it's funny that the Ringsight, which is like sort of black and white and is famously like blurry and gray, cares about color.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I guess when you have it on as well, like you can see ghosts of all colors, I guess, the idea, I guess. Okay, whatever.
Let's keep it moving. Yeah, I think Ringsight's interesting, but it is a little bit worse than it looks.
Yeah, and please have me stop talking about Lord of the Rings lore before it gets bad.
This next one is sweet. It's Sauron's Ransom. 1 blue, black for an instant this time. It says choose an opponent. They look at the top 4 cards of your library and separate them into a face down pile and a face up pile. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. The Ring Tempts You.
All right. So Fact or Fiction, kind of.
Ish. It's Fact or Fiction-ish. It's Hostile Negotiations-ish. It's Atris Oracle of Half-Truths on an instant.
Yeah, on an instant. The instant part of it's nice.
It's interesting. So I think this card is sweet. I think it's going to see play. Anytime, like you want Fact or Fiction or Hostile Negotiations, you kind of take all of those effects that you can get.
Yeah.
And it's 3 mana at instant speed.
Yeah, Hostile Negotiations is 4 as is Fact or Fiction.
Fact or Fiction is 4.
And
you only see 4 cards versus the 5, but you also get this added, the Ring Tempts You bonus on it. So I think Sauron's Ransom is good, but I wanted to talk about what the Ring Tempts You does to this card.
Okay, yeah.
because
it is instant, which is cool. So
It
that
is an
means you can
instant.
use it at a specific time with the ring.
And I was like, what does one do with that? Is there anything super tricksy you can do? And the answer is kind of no.
Nice. I love a kind of not really.
But you can move the ring bearer around at instant speed. So
Okay.
if they block one thing and you really want to hit and drain them for something, or you really want to hit like on your creature with double
Okay.
strike, you can move the ring bearer and
Right.
get that
swing
that
with multiple
combat damage
creatures.
there.
They block that one. Cool. I'm going to cast Sauron's Ransom, do this stuff, and then move my ring bearer. Okay.
Right.
That's cool.
So I think that's the coolest trick. But I was looking at it and I was like, ooh, what if you do it after blocks? You move the ring to a creature that has been blocked and then force them to sack it.
Doesn't work. Because
Doesn't work.
your ring bearer has to be blocked by a creature, and then that would happen. So you can't get
Right.
blocked and then move the ring onto that creature.
Right. It's a little strange on this card. And I think it's like Sauron's Ransom is going to be one of the cards that says the ring tempts you and is the only card in the deck that says
does
the
it,
ring
yeah.
tempts you.
Because I would say the effect by itself is still pretty good,
Right.
especially in graveyard decks. It's really thematic because I think it's the mouth of Sauron. Oh god, here I go again. They actually cut this scene from the movie, but they did film it. But it's basically saying like, hey, we want to trade. And so the ring tempts you is kind of like that because it's like, oh, we're going to torture your little hobbit friends if you don't agree.
Yeah.
So it's very thematic in that way. And I think just the effect for 3 mana to do a fact or fiction, but for 4 is by far good enough.
And this gives it an upside in decks that care about combat damage. If you're playing Timna decks, if you're playing Yuriko deck or
Yeah.
something like that, and you want to make sure Yuriko gets through and she's on the battlefield.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Like, it does give you this skulk ability in addition to that. So I think
Yeah.
when you look at Sauron's Ransom, you're like, okay, it's this Atris Oracle of Half-Truths ability that also gives a creature skulk for the time being.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of value for 3 mana at instant speed.
Yeah, I would say like adding the ability of the first part of the ring on top of, right, if you're going fact or fiction just because it's 5 cards, but it's like, what if you got it for 1 mana cheaper and you were able to give your creature that ability? That does seem worth it. In fact, Sauron's Ransom in this, I think, actually is better than fact or fiction in the decks that care about combat damage or just want their commander to get through or just need the extra little bit of evasion.
Right. Of course. And this is 2 colors, so it's harder to find a deck for than fact or fiction. But I do think Sauron's Ransom is quite good.
Quite good. All right, next up we're going to talk about the first Saga, which seems just perfect to be a card type in the Lord of the Rings set.
Awesome.
So this is 2 in the blue for its Scroll of Isildur. Isildur is notably, here I go again, the guy that cut off the ring from Sauron's hand at the very beginning of the movies, if you remember that scene. He's also one of the main characters of the Rings of Power. Did you know that?
Did. I've seen it.
Cool. Okay, all right.
It's very flavorful saga.
Maybe I should just become a Tolkien scholar.
I mean, you're going to like tell the story of Isildur in this
That's
saga.
right.
It's really cool.
So as this saga enters the battlefield and after your draw step, you add a lore counter and you sacrifice after 3. So the first part of this story says, gain control of up to 1 target artifact for as long as you control Scroll of Isildur, the ring tempts you.
You steal the ring from Sauron!
Play the music.
Also, you're going to steal a soul ring with this most of the time, which
Yeah.
makes my heart so happy.
Yeah, 3 mana steal an artifact. There's another thief of the multiverse that loves to do that as well. So
Dack,
this-
dack, dack.
dack.
And you steal it for 3 turns? That's an eternity.
Yeah, that's right, because you're going to have this through each of
2
the saga.
turns.
Yeah.
Come down, you used to steal it 1, 2,
2,
and then sack
3.
it.
Oh, after 3, but you can still float it for mana. if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
The second part of Scroll of Isildur says tap up to 2 target creatures, put a stun counter on each of them. I think this is him taking the ring from other people or something. I don't know.
This is him like gaining power over everybody else.
Yeah,
because Isildur kind of goes nuts.
Yeah, and and there may be 2 specific characters too in the books that he actually does this to.
Yeah.
And then
like
the
Elrond who wants him to throw the ring away.
Yes, that's right. And then Elrond's like, shoot, I couldn't get him to do it. Got to go back to the Matrix. And then the third part of Scroll of Isildur is draw a card for each tapped creature target opponent controls. So that's pretty sweet. Sometimes this just gets someone, but at the very least, you're probably drawing 1. Sorry, 2, because you tap 2 creatures with a sun counter on it.
As long as you tap 2 creatures controlled by the same opponent.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you can draw those 2 cards.
Yeah. Otherwise, that's still a decent amount of value. But yeah, stealing a soul ring even stealing a Signet or whatever, just giving you a little bit extra mana. Mono
Bolus's
blue.
Citadel.
Oh my gosh.
There's crazy artifacts you can steal.
Yeah, and
you can steal the One Ring.
You don't have to play this on turn 3. That's right. There is an actual One Ring card as well as the One Ring. We should have mentioned that at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
But there's another card that's called the One Ring that has nothing to do with the ring emblem.
This one's just the ring.
Yeah. And that card's very good to steal as well. So stealing stuff is very powerful just by itself. If it said 2 and a blue when the center is the battlefield, steal an artifact, and then for 3 turns, that might be playable.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool tricks with the Scroll of Isildur. It's very easy to hang on to an artifact. It's like as long as you control the saga, right? So you could keep removing lore counters, so you keep it around.
Right.
There's a lot of saga decks that tend to manipulate counters. On top of that, they use cards like Clock Spinning or Power Conduit to remove counters and put them elsewhere. Or you could use Ghostly Flicker and flicker the artifact. It returns to the battlefield under your control.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Ghostly Flicker is one of the few flicker spells that doesn't return it under its owner's control. It comes right back to your battlefield, and then it will have left the battlefield. It's a new permanent, and it's yours.
Yeah, I like Scroll of Isildur a lot. This is a really, really sweet saga.
I also really like, so we were talking about this counter manipulation stuff to keep the saga around. I really like it in proliferate decks as well because those stun counters are really strong.
Oh, you just keep the sun counters going.
And usually if you're proliferating in blue, you're kind of manipulating counters. So you're taking stuff off, putting it elsewhere, you're moving things around. So it feels like it really goes in these like mono blue counters decks. But just stealing an artifact for that many turns is really strong.
Yeah, Tom Bombadil's wife character as well does a lot of counter
Goldberry.
Yeah, Goldberry does counter manipulation as well, which is mono blue, I believe. So that's actually pretty effective there. That's really sweet.
I think this is a super sweet card. The interesting thing about it is the Ring Tempting You is very much a footnote on this. It's a flavor thing.
Yeah.
But you do still get that value. So it could be like, I really like it in a Thada Adel deck.
Oh, it's got Island Walk, so the Ring Tempts You is even better.
It's very strong, so it gives you like, even if this is the only thing in the Thada Adel deck that has the Ring Tempts You on
Just
it.
making Thada Adel that much better.
You give her Skulk, which gives her alternate evasion to Island Walk.
Yeah.
She's a 2/2 naturally, and then the deck wants to steal artifacts. So when Thada deals combat damage to a player, search that player's library for an artifact card, exile it, then that player shuffles his or her library until the end of turn. You may play that card.
Yeah, that seems like a perfect addition to a Thada Adel deck.
Yeah. But like we said, in those combat damage matters decks, this could be reason enough to put it over the edge.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you get to tap some stuff down. That can be really relevant in a lot of games, especially if someone has some crazy Eldrazi, or maybe they even have their own ring bearer that's trying to smack you and kill you. You can stop that from happening. Stop it.
Stop it.
Tap it down. And then you get to draw some cards. Frodo. Get out of here.
Yeah, so this last ability is a card that exists in Magic. There's 2 versions of it as Borrowing 100,000 Arrows and Theft of Dreams are both cards that do this. And they're good in decks that tend to tap down a lot of creatures or force your opponents to attack.
Yeah, there's also, what is her name? Tamio, one of the Tamio Moon Sages.
Yes, the Mono Blue Tamio.
Yeah, the Mono Blue Tamio, yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of effect is very strong in Commander because you have options. It's not just your one opponent that might not have any creatures. It could be... there's always an aggro.
Yeah, and even, again, just drawing 2 cards.
Real strong.
Real strong by itself, yeah. So stealing a Soul Ring for 3 turns is big game. Stealing a Bolas' Citadel for 1 turn is big game. Ugh. Yeah, we've seen how powerful Dak Faden can be. It's played in very competitive circles as well. So I think a card like this, because it's the same thing basically, sorcery speed, come down, steal something, and then the Ring Tempts You on top of all of that, pretty darn good.
Yeah, I like this card a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Those are the cards in the 99 that we're going to talk about, the Ring Tempting You. I think this mechanic is very interesting. If you've got a Combat Damage Matters deck, take a look at it. Maybe there's some cool cards, some ways that you can take advantage of it. We are going to talk about all of the commanders that really care about the Ring Tempting You after a few words from our sponsors.
Hey everyone, we are super excited to announce that we are now sponsored by ARCHIDEKT.
ARCHIDEKT is the perfect place to build and store decks online, whether you want to build from scratch or catalog your collection.
Everything is easy and intuitive. It's got the same feeling as when you sit at the table with your cards laid out right in front of you.
Then, once your deck is done and ready to go, their built-in playtester is a great tool to make sure your brews work as intended.
And now that ARCHIDEKT has partnered with EDH Rec, they have all the resources and data they need to really refine and perfect the platform. So even if you've tried ARCHIDEKT in the past, it's definitely definitely worth taking a new look right now.
Just go to archidekt.com and start brewing on the best deck builder out there.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com.
It can be frustrating. While my monkey bros get stronger off these bananas, there's never enough left for old Kibo Uktabi Prince. But lucky for me, I have a little secret. Factor! Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and features a variety of options to keep you full, energized, and prepared to tackle whatever monkey business the day throws at you. So while my buddies are going bananas for their bananas, I can indulge in delicious meals, like their calorie-smart creamy Parmesan chicken. Yeah, I'm a carnivore. What's it to ya? Factor meals take just 2 minutes to prepare, are cheaper than takeout, and get delivered straight to your neck of the woods. Literally, no matter your goal, whether it's saving money or eating healthier, Factor can help you get there without having to sacrifice. So don't be a chump or a chimp, be a champ, and try it today.
Head to factormeals.com/command50 and use code command50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code command50 at factormeals.com/command50 to get 50% off your first box.
Whether you're searching for the latest sneaker drop, that iconic handbag, a timeless watch, or your next piece of classic jewelry, eBay authenticators are there verifying every detail of your purchase.
Yep, we're talking each inch, stitch, tick, facet, and clasp that make the piece you're searching for worthy of your collection.
eBay's authenticators are experts in their craft, true connoisseurs.
And as leaders in their fields, they're making sure your items always arrive as authentic as your style. So go ahead, get that piece you've always wanted.
And leave it up to the meticulous eyes of an eBay authenticator to make sure that watch movement is original, that glimmer is real gold, that rare sneaker is legit, or that handbag is really made of genuine leather, and never get faked over again.
In a world full of fakes, it's time to get real with eBay Authenticity Guarantee.
Everyone deserves real. Visit ebay.com for terms. Welcome back, everybody. We are now talking about the commanders that care about the ring tempting you, and it's not just the bad guys. Turns out the ring tempts everyone, and including the Fellowship, because we're going to kick things off with Aragorn, Company Leader. This is 1 a green and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature, Human Ranger. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you chose a creature other than Aragorn as your ring bearer, put your choice of a counter from among First Strike, Vigilance, Death Touch, and a lifelink on Aragorn. So the ring tempts you, Aragorn's like, not for me. He gets stronger from among First Strike, Vigilance, Death Touch, and lifelink. So up to 4 different cool things. By the way, 4
abilities.
4 abilities on the ring. And then whenever you put 1 or more counters on Aragorn, put 1 of each of those kinds of counters on up to 1 other target creature. So Aragorn's like, I'm vigilant now, and so are you, young Frodo. So he passes it on as a true company leader.
This is such a sweet flavor card, and I think it can make for a really cool deck, although it is tricky to get the Ring Tempts You in green and white.
Yeah, not only that, it's also tricky to have a deck where you need to basically have like 15 different counter types of those low counters waiting around because you're going to be putting them on all sorts of stuff.
That's true. This is a keyword counter.
It's a keyword
deck.
counters deck. Yeah, they're a bit tougher to upkeep, so just keep that in mind. If you do decide to build this, you need to communicate that well.
Although I do know that ULTRAPRO made keyword dice.
They did,
Last
yeah.
time I looked, they were sold out, but hopefully they'll do a restock because I really want some.
Aragorn decided to take all of them.
Yeah,
I need these.
that's true.
Yeah, so being tempted by the ring in green and white. How does that work?
I want to do a little stipulation before we get started. If you're building a deck that says the ring tempts you, like whenever the ring tempts you, you kind of just want all the cards that say the ring tempts you.
Yeah, you want to put them all in there.
Unless they're really expensive.
Or not worth it.
Or you can't, like some of them are dies triggers and you can't get them to die.
Yeah.
Like notably, Aragorn doesn't have anything that the ring tempts him. It all has to be outside sources that cause the ring to tempt you. So you probably just want all of them. But we're going to talk about the best ones, and we're going to talk about specifically the ones that are best with Aragorn, even though you may just want all of them.
Yep.
Okay. The first one in green, what I think is going to be best in this is Bombadil's Song. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains hexproof until end of turn. The ring tempts you.
Yeah.
Protect your boy. He's an important boy.
And you get a ring temptation trigger, and then you get to make the boy even more important. Yeah, this is just good for any type of deck that has a commander you care about. So pretty good. The next one is Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin. 3 in the white sorcery. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. They gain vigilance until end of turn. The ring tempts you.
So it's counters, and it gives a counter to Aragorn. Seems good enough, even though this kind of card isn't normally good enough for a commander deck.
Yeah, because you're gonna get the 1/1 counter. They're all gonna gain vigilance, and then you also get to add a first strike counter to Aragorn or whatever, and another creature,
and another +1 counter to something else.
Yeah,
because Aragorn.
Oh yeah, whenever you put one or more counters. That's right. That's a good point.
Yeah, so it is going to do a decent amount of work in this deck.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Ring Tempts You stuff in green and white are based around legends, and you can see that in Frodo Baggins. He's a green and white for a 1/3 halfling scout. When Frodo Baggins or another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, the ring tempts you. As long as Frodo is your ring bearer, it must be blocked with a Fable. So He's got a little lure on him as well.
Yeah. So Frodo Baggins seems like the better commander for the deck.
Yeah, if you're building a Ring Tempts You deck, Frodo is going to be a more reliable way to repeatedly get the ring to tempt you.
But I think Aragorn is by far more powerful.
Right.
So you could just use Aragorn and hope you draw Frodo or tutor him out each time.
Or
Because it seems really good in this deck.
Search for Frodo, and you can search for Frodo with War of the Last Alliance.
Ooh.
3 and a white for a saga. The first and second chapters are search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
Nice.
So search for Frodo, search for the Boromir, Warden of the Tower, and then creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. The ring tempts you.
Yeah, that's the third chapter.
Does it all.
Yeah, you have to wait till the third one, so it's 3 turns till the ring tempts you, but you're finding the best cards in your deck. Boromir is, you get to sacrifice him and give your creatures indestructible, and then the ring tempts you, which is so thematic it hurts.
Yeah. It's so good, and it's so sad in this deck.
Yeah, it is very sad. But yeah, those are by far, you're definitely going to want to get Frodo out, and then obviously the other cards in the deck that are thematic with it, and Boromir. And then the ring goes south. This is 3 and a green for a sorcery. The ring tempts you. Then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X land cards, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Put those land cards onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Yeah, a little bit of ramp, a little bit of tempt, and cares about the legendaries in the deck. I imagine if you're building Aragorn, you're building a fellowship deck, and you're just kind of stuffing all of the legends into the deck.
Notably, sometimes, as we saw in the 1 blue black Sauron's Ransom, the ring tempts you is at the end of the text. This is the ring tempts you at the beginning of the text because it makes a creature legendary, and then it makes the ring go south a little better.
Yeah, that's good to know. If you are building around Aragorn, you care about counters, which means we have all of the usual suspects who care about moving counters around. The Ozolith, resourceful defense, and nesting grounds. All of those will move the ability counters from Aragorn somewhere else.
Or onto Aragorn.
Onto Aragorn, so we can give it to someone else again.
Yeah. Notably, Ozolith has been reprinted as Argonath Pillars of the Kings.
Yeah, very flavorful.
2 cool giant
like Gondor,
Gondor
hands.
pillars.
Yeah. Super sweet card in this deck is Contractual Safeguard.
Oh yeah, this one's sweet.
2 and a white for an instant. It's if you cast this spell during your main phase, put a shield counter on a creature you control, then choose a kind of counter on a creature you control, put a counter of that kind on each other creature you control.
Cool.
So even if the ring only tempts you once, and there's only 1 ability counter on Aragorn, you can now put it on all of your creatures that you have.
Yep. And notably, we've been seeing just more and more of these ability counters come up recently. Elspeth Resplendent from Capenna can give a 1/1 counter and a counter among flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilance on it. So you can start giving counters to Aragorn that he wouldn't be able to get otherwise, because he just gets first strength, vigilance, death touch, and lifelink. So there's other counters now you can throw onto them. Flying, notably, is pretty good.
Yeah, Family's Favor is great in this deck. There's a lot of stuff from New Capenna because they cared about
shield
counter specifically, and this one is shield. It says whenever you attack, put a shield counter on target attacking creature, probably Aragorn. Until end of turn, it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, remove a shield counter from it. If you do, draw a card.
Wow.
So you put a shield counter on Aragorn, you put it on another creature, then hypothetically you draw a card. If he's got first strike or vigilance or any of these other things.
Yeah, you take the counter off, and then the next time you can do it all over again.
Yeah. I like this one a lot.
Yeah, Family's Favor kind of matches with the Fellowship.
It's kind of you can get an altar that's Arwen's.
Oh, nice.
There you go. See,
Slippery Bogbinder seems nuts in this deck. It's 3 and a green for a flash hexproof creature. When it enters the battlefield, put a hexproof counter on target creature, then move any number of counters from among creatures you control onto that creature. So you could put a hexproof counter on Aragorn, then move a flying vigilance, whatever. And then again, those will trigger and you get to put it onto other things if you didn't have them already. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, Avenging Hunt Bonder is in this same cycle. It's a 5-mana 3/3 with double strike, and whenever it attacks, put a double strike counter on another attacking creature.
Nice. Yeah, you probably want Aragorn to attack.
Yes, I would think so. If you're loading him up with all these keywords and not attacking, I don't know what you're doing.
Aragorn company, stand around and look around.
Luminous Broodmoth is going to be good in this deck. It's a little weird because if you put a flying counter on Aragorn, he puts it on something else, and then the other thing dies, it can't come back. But it still puts keyword counters on it and is going to make a ton of stuff fly all at the same time.
Yeah, that's good. And it just is a way to save Aragorn in case he dies.
That too. It's just a good card.
Yeah, he's going to be a removal magnet, I think, if people realize what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Scavenged Brawler is one of my favorite cards that they printed recently in terms of keyword counters. It's a 6-mana 4/4 with Flying, Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink, but you don't care about that. It says 5, exile Scavenged Brawler from your graveyard, choose target creature, put 4 +1/+1 counters, a flying counter, a vigilance counter, a trample counter, and a lifelink counter on that creature.
Wow.
Activate only as a sorcery.
Now, do you get to put all 4 +1/+1 counters on another creature? Or
just one,
Okay.
because it's one of each kind that's put on him.
That's pretty sweet, though. You have Aragorn and Frodo Baggins out. Now you have a flying vigilance, trample, lifelink Aragorn, and a flying vigilance, trample, lifelink
He has
Frodo.
really been training Frodo with that sword. He's getting really good.
Yeah, he doesn't get 4 +1/+1 counters, but he gets 1 on Frodo. So he's not as buff because he's a halfling, obviously. Yeah, that's sweet.
This is green-white counters, but it's specified in keyword counters.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot of regular +1 counters that are cards that are good. I think Together Forever goes in this deck, which is also very flavorful. You could put Arwen in the deck. She's really good.
Oh, yeah. Really good. Indestructible.
And or even just something like Luminarch Aspirant is every combat you put a counter on Aragorn and also on something else.
Yeah. Hexavis is really sweet. You can pay 1 to remove a 1/1 counter from it to put a flying counter on another creature, or you remove a counter from another creature to put a 1/1 counter on Hexavis. Notably, Aragorn can have multiple vigilance counters on him, multiple whatevers. And so if you find that he has a lot, a card like Hexavis lets you move stuff around.
Yeah, and reload and make sure everything has flying.
Yeah.
A super cute card in this deck, I think, is Capitek Wrecker. Remember this card?
Yeah.
1 and a green for a Ninja Turtle.
Great card in Cube.
Ninjutsu is 1 and a green, and Capitek Wrecker enters the battlefield with a Death Touch counter on it. Then, when it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a Death Touch counter from it. When you do, exile target artifact or enchantment that player controls.
Very cool.
So with Aragorn, you can keep reloading that Death Touch counter onto the Capitek Wrecker over and over and over again, and keep exiling stuff until they deal with either the Capitek Wrecker or Aragorn.
And the ring's going to tempt a 1/3.
Yeah, that too.
Wow, this Ninja Turtle's going all the way. I didn't realize
good.
Universes Beyond was also in the Ninja Turtle universe.
But you can put you can give the Ninja Turtles the ring. That's how they screw the Eagles into Mordor.
I want to bring
should have sent the Ninja Turtles.
Send all 4 of the Ninja Turtles. See what Sauron does about that. Mondrak Glory Dominus, 2 white, 1. And then 2 Phyrexian. You can sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures, and you get an indestructible counter on Mondrak.
Yeah.
So that's good.
If you're moving counters around and getting an indestructible counter into
at some point
the space is going to be good. You could do Mondrak or the big, what's the green one?
Oh, yeah.
Zapendril.
Zapendril, Hunger Dominus.
That one too.
I would say getting an indestructible counter or a hexproof counter on Aragorn's like your top priority.
Right.
Because those are the things that are make sure he just doesn't get wiped out of this planet because everyone's going to want to kill him.
Yeah, for sure. He's a bit of a removal magnet. So we're doing keyword stuff. You're going to want the classic keyword cards as well. Audrek, Lunarch, Marshall. You slam dunk into this deck.
Yep.
It gives all of your creatures all of the keywords that you have on the battlefield.
Notably, not notably, Audrek does give Skulk if another creature has it.
But it doesn't
give the Rings ability.
This doesn't say Skulk.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah, so just don't do that by accident.
That's really funny. I didn't think about
Well, I remember when Josh and I talked about this card originally, we were like, Skulk?
Yeah.
Skulk is because it was just in the set
right.
that he was from, which is Shadows over Innistrad. Skyboon Evangelist has this thing where it supports 6.
Yeah.
So you put a +1/+1 counter on each of other 6 other target creatures. And then whenever a creature with a counter on it attacks, it gains flying until end of turn.
Attacks one of your opponents.
Yeah, with a counter on it. So
it does help your other opponents attack each
that's
other.
A good point.
I think this card's sweet, though.
Yeah, I like it.
Plus, you can divvy out the counter, so you just can put 1 on Aragorn.
Yeah.
The other kind of less interesting way you can build this, in my opinion, is with pingers. You can give them Death Touch.
Cute.
With Aragorn,
Yeah,
he gives him death touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But the funniest thing to give lifelink to, or death touch, or anything is Stuffy Doll.
Stuffy Doll? Yeah, Stuffy Doll's pretty good for
You
that.
can get lifelink, like if you give Aragorn lifelink and also give Stuffy Doll lifelink.
Oh, now it just deals.
Now you're gaining a lot of life. You're shooting some stuff around. That's kind of fun.
Okay,
That's the
yeah.
coolest pinger to give death touch or lifelink to.
The most powerful one is Walking Ballista, and then at that point you could just play the Heliod Walking
Yeah, the
Ballista
Walking
combo.
Ballista. You've done it. Good job.
You did it!
All right. I love this next card.
You want to read it then?
Yeah, let's do it. It's Bilbo, retired burglar. 1, a blue and a red for a halfling rogue. He's a 1/3. When he enters or leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you. And whenever Bilbo deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token.
Okay, so leaving and entering the battlefield is kind of like him putting the ring on and off, I assume.
Yeah, it's also him showing up to his birthday party and then bailing early. It's Irish goodbye.
Yeah, and getting tempted by the ring the whole time. So yeah, creating a treasure token on combat damage is pretty good, especially if you're going to give him Skulk and all that stuff. When he enters the battlefield, he instantly gets the ring attached to him, presumably.
Yeah, I would think so.
Pretty good.
So yeah, as soon as he comes in, he immediately has, fake Skulk and becomes legendary again. And then, but I do really think that in this deck, you want to have maxed out your ring.
Yeah.
Like in Aragorn, you don't really care about the ring as much. You care about the ring tempting you triggers.
Yeah.
I think this in the burglar deck, you do want to get to 4 because you care about dealing combat damage.
Yeah, and that's going to help fuel your entire game plan, and your commander is just really going to be good at hurting things, and then winning probably at this deck is the last
I would think
part of the
so,
ring to make everyone lose 3 life, yeah.
So there's a lot of cards in the set that do it. A Birthday Escape is the most flavorful. The ring tempts you and you draw a card.
1 blue for a sorcery, pretty good.
Inherited Envelope is also very good. It's a 3-mana mana rock. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you.
And tap it for any color.
I think you even run Ranger's Firebrand in this deck. It's red for a sorcery, and it deals 2 damage to any target, and then the ring tempts you.
Right, just to get the ring going.
Right. And I think unless you blink Bilbo, you could blink Bilbo and get all the way up to it if you'd like. But it's more flavorful to run the ring tempts you cards, I think.
Yeah, and I think you would want to run some of the blink effects in this deck just to protect him.
Yeah.
And you're just going to get the additional part of hey, he leaves the battlefield and enters the battlefield. That instantly is 2 temptations of the ring right there.
Right. So you don't necessarily have to load the deck up with the ring tempts you effects because it is on Bilbo himself.
Yeah, and then you're going to want to make him real powerful by having him hit a bunch of times.
Yeah, double strike for sure. Lizard Blades and Fire Shrieker are, I think, the 2 best ways to give him double strike because you don't exactly want his power to get higher.
Oh, interesting. Right.
Because you want to, right now he's a 1/3. If you make him a 2/4, he's significantly easier to block.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great call. If you do want to give double strike as well and some more power, Ember Cleave on Bilbo Baggins seems just hilarious.
Give him this huge sword. It's Sting has grown. Double strike is going to be really, really important in this deck, and I think Swashbuckler Extraordinaire is pretty funny as well.
Yeah.
It's a 2 and a red for a dragon, rogue, warrior, a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you make a treasure token. When you attack, you may sacrifice 1 or more treasures. When you do, up to that many target creatures gain double strike until end of turn.
Yep, I like that a lot.
Little treasures, a little double strike. That's what we want in this deck.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other things that give you treasures on attack. Guild Artisan is a background. Commander creatures you own have whenever this creature attacks a player. If no opponent has more life than that player, you create 2 treasure tokens. So now Bilbo is just pumping out treasures for you.
Just for attacking.
Where do you get them from? Smaug's Cave? What's happening over here?
For sure.
Storm the Vault is 2, a blue and a red. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, you transform Storm the Vault. So you get, obviously, you're probably going to transform it in this deck.
You really would like to, because the backside adds blue for every artifact you control.
Yeah, that's a Tolarian Academy,
which is banned.
Banned. Yeah. Brass's Bounty just makes tons of treasures for each land you control. Goldspan Dragon turns your treasures into tapping for 2. Zoran doubles it up. Academy Manufacturer might be the best card in this deck.
Triples it up? Yeah.
Yeah, every time you make a treasure, now you make a clue, food, and treasure instead.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of decks like this lately that turn treasures into value. Professional Facebreaker also goes in this deck. Shimmer Dragon starts tapping treasures for card draw. Magda Brazen Outlaw tutors for maybe the 1 ring and puts it right into play.
That's right, Artifactor Dragon. Pretty
and
sweet.
she's a dwarf, so it's kind of on flavor for Bilbo.
Yeah. He's just hanging out with the dwarves again.
Yeah, let's pretend there was a single woman in The Hobbit.
That's a good point. Yeah, that rode down the waterfalls with them.
Yeah.
So other win cons outside of the full-on ring being at full power and Bilbo hitting people are cards like Reckless Fireweaver that pings people for having artifacts near the battlefield. Ingenious Artillerist does the same thing. I think you play these cards in this deck specifically because it's just, you don't have a lot of win cons otherwise.
Yeah.
You're a blue-red deck that isn't Spellslinger.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a little strange. I can definitely see this deck using like artifacts entering the battlefield stuff. I could see it winning with like a Rise and Shine or a Cyberdrive Awakener that turns your non-creature artifacts into like big chunky 4/4s and then hits real hard. I could also see using damage magnifiers rather like a Torbran.
Yeah.
So it doesn't buff Bilbo's power, but it does increase the amount of damage that Bilbo does when he deals combat damage. So he's dealing 3 and then hopefully 3 again when he connects and then draining them for 3. So that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, you maybe even play like a City on Fire if you're making so many treasures that an 8 mana damage tripler isn't too crazy.
If you want to focus on just the dealing combat damage of them all, there are some like cool cards that you could put in red and blue that care about that. Popular Entertainer is a fun background. It gives your commander the ability, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, go target creature that player controls.
Okay, yeah. And Bilbo is supposed to be the entertainer of his party.
He is.
He keeps disappearing.
He shows up and he's like, welcome.
I like Shameless Charlatan a lot. It's 1 in the blue for, again, a background that says commander creatures you own have the ability, 2 in the blue, this creature becomes a copy of another target creature.
Oh, yeah,
which you can activate right before he deals combat damage and has not been blocked by anyone.
You did not block because you could not. Ha-ha!
Now I'm a 6/6 dragon.
Bonk.
With the ring abilities and a Fire Shrieker or whatever.
Super sick.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
In this deck. Grenzo Havoc Razor is kind of funny. He's red for a Goblin Rogue. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, choose one. Either goad target creature that player controls or exile the top card of that player's library. Until the end of turn, you may cast that card and you may spend mana as though mana of any color to cast it.
Yeah, and you're going to have, again, a lot of treasures. You don't need to maybe run as much ramp in this deck because you're just a treasure maker with Bilbo over and over again.
Yeah, and Bilbo's only like a 3-drop, so he can come down early.
Yeah, and he will be hitting a lot of people. You probably can also do some like double combat stuff if you're really trying to end the game through just the drain part of it.
Yeah.
Reconnaissance Mission is going to draw you cards every time you deal combat to a player. You can draw a card, so that's cool too.
Okay, or you could build a ring-themed deck.
Whose idea was this?
Me. What if Bilbo steals all the rings?
Every single ring. He's just hunting for the ring.
He's just like really obsessed with rings. Like he loses the one ring and he's like, I'm just going to buy every ring I find.
Yeah, I'm going to go around stealing all the rings. Okay.
And Rings of Brighthearth and Replicating Ring and Sisay's Ring. There's a lot of rings. They're all artifacts.
There are a lot of rings, including the one ring itself. I guess now we should read the
let's do it.
It's a 4-mana indestructible legendary artifact. When the One Ring enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn.
Pretty good.
Can't be targeted, can't be dealt damage, blah, blah. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring, and then you can tap it to add a burden counter, then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it enters the battlefield for 4 mana, tap it, add a burden counter, draw a card, untap it, next turn, add a burden counter, draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
You're taking a little bit of damage, but you have protection from everything until your next turn too.
Yeah.
So you can like save up your life total for taking damage from the ring.
Yeah, totally.
You could also do the Ring of 3 Wishes.
Ring of 3 Wishes, yeah, it's a fun card.
Anyway, there's a lot of rings in Magic, and I think it would be pretty funny to build a ring.
Yeah, and they're all decent. So
yeah.
Why not?
I only listed the good ones. You'd have to probably pick some bad ones.
Okay, let's talk about our next commander. It is Frodo, Sauron's Bane. It's the Frodo at the very end of the story as he's looking to huck that ring into the pits.
It's the most twisted Frodo. He's had a tough time.
Yeah, twisted. Yeah, he's rocking out. It's a 1 white for a legendary creature halfling citizen that is a 1/2. And it has these sort of like evolved text on it. So it has 2 abilities, and each time you use the abilities, it checks if the last one's been done, and then it makes the creature stronger. So the first time you can play white, black, so 2 Orzhov. If Frodo, Sauron's Bane, is a citizen, which he is, it becomes a halfling scout with base power and toughness 2/3 and lifelink. So it starts off as a halfling citizen, then it becomes a halfling scout as he evolves into the story. And then the second ability is black. If Frodo is a scout, it becomes a halfling rogue with whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game if the ring has tempted you 4 or more times this game. Otherwise, the ring tempts you. So he's going to become a bigger, no, not a bigger creature. He'll still be a 2/3 with lifelink.
Yeah.
But when it hits you, if you are someone that's playing a Ring Tempts You deck, you lose if you've been tempted 4 times. Otherwise, he begins the train of the Ring Tempting You. Kind of cool.
Yeah, this is an interesting deck. This is definitely like the turbo Ring Tempts You deck. This is going to have all the Nazgûl. This is going to have like the Witch King of Angmar that we're going to talk about. This is going to have like Samwise the Stout-Hearted, which is when he enters the battlefield, you choose up to 1 target permanent from your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, return it to your hand, and then the Ring Tempts You. Like just every single card that says the Ring Tempts You on it in black and white is going in this deck.
Yeah, because you want to get up to 4, because then Frodo just starts killing people.
Yeah. And you want to do it fast because your commander says you're going to kill people.
Yeah, and by the way, it's a total cost of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana to get him there. You pay 1 for him, then an activated cost of 2, then 3. So you're going to have to do it over the course of a couple of turns, and everyone's going to see you doing it.
Yeah. Do you cast Frodo before you have been tempted by the ring 3 times?
Oh, interesting.
Like 4 times?
Frodo is a 1 mana 1/2 that requires some investment to get in there. I think you probably wait. I think you want to do it on a turn when it's safe to evolve him all the way and then get some kind of protection on him too.
Yeah. You like cast him, protect him when you're at like 1 or 2 and people aren't maybe worried about him. And then on 1 turn, you kind of have to like buff the Ring Tempts You a bunch of times.
Yeah, buff,
and then get there. Like you have to be really sneaky about it.
Put swift boots on him or whatever. Because otherwise, just getting him out there and evolving him, but just not doing anything and then dying to a board wipe or whatever, that sets you back.
It's going to get removed. People have to remove it. It says like it says that you could one-shot somebody.
Yeah, not just that, but the card doesn't really do anything otherwise until then. It just becomes a 2/3 with lifelink. So you have to have the ring text on there before it becomes like we got to stop this from happening.
Right. I think you spend the first few turns getting the ring to tempt you and setting up the board and making sure you have protection for your commander. Let's talk about the protection that goes onto this boy.
Yeah.
Because he's scary.
Yeah, maybe the most thematic one is Slip on the Ring. It's 1 white for an instant. You exile the creature you control, then you return it to the battlefield under your control and the ring tempts you. So this will dodge a lot of spot removal, which is nice. And you get that ring temptation.
Yeah. The classics in this deck, we got Lightning Greaves and Whisper Silk Cloak, particularly good because it's both unblockable and Shroud. Yeah. Important to note, the ring chooses. It does not target, so it gets around Shroud.
Yep. Scroll of Defector Might is a you can pay for X mana and tap it to give a creature pseudo protection against Toxin 1 and Hexproof from a color of your choice, and they can't be blocked either, which seems really good because you're trying to kill someone with Frodo.
Yeah, I like Skrelv, Giver of Runes, Mother of Runes. These 3 in this deck do double duty because they protect your scary commander and they give him evasion. Yeah. Which is exactly what you need.
Emerge Unscathed is sweet. It's a 1 white for an instant. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and it gains Rebound. So that card is going to recast itself. So this could be a way of like, Frodo's out ready to kill someone, go into attack, give him protection, and then the next turn, give him protection from another color, kill someone else with it.
Yeah. 2 cards in 1. Again, we're working on combat damage stuff, which means double strike is essential. If you're only at 3, you could hit on the first one and get the ring to tempt you, and then hit on the second one
and kill them.
And they are out of there. So double strike really speeds up the clock. Even if you're like, I have no way to get the ring to tempt me, I'm going to get Frodo out and start hitting. Then double strike gives you. It makes things go faster. So again, Fire Shrieker.
Chroma's Will, protection and double strike and evasion.
Really strong.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to give double strike in white. Duelist Heritage is one of my favorites. You can pick 1 creature per combat and give it double strike. Doesn't have to be your own.
Yeah, that's right.
Flaming Fist says whenever it's a background and says whenever your commander attacks, it gains double strike until end of turn.
Silverblade Paladin is a soulbound creature that feels very thematic in this deck to help Frodo out, giving him double strike as well.
Yeah.
Do you play Dark Ritual in this deck?
Just to power it out?
Just to get that black, yeah.
This is a turbo deck. You cannot mess around.
Yeah.
Like, I think you want your curve low and your protection high because your commander is scary. Even if he's like, I don't think this card is particularly good, but he says wins the game on it.
Yeah.
It's the same as like that assassin commander that they printed.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I don't particularly think I'm going to die this way, but I can't not kill it if I get a moment.
Yeah. You wrote that this is also a potential Luris of the Dream Den companion deck, which the companion thing is each permanent card in your starting deck has to have a CMC 2 or less.
Yeah. It's a little tricky with all the Ring Tempts You stuff, but I like the idea of having, well, first of all, giving Frodo a big dream kitty to hang out with. Love that idea. But it's great with your mothers and your givers and the equipment type stuff that we talked about.
That's cool. All right, if someone out there is going to build a Frodo deck, let me know. I'm terrified of it.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is the card that's on my playmat. It is Sméagol, Helpful Guide. 1, a black and a green for a 4/2 halfling horror. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, the ring tempts you. Whenever the ring tempts you, target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped under your control and the rest into their graveyard. Okay.
This card's sweet.
This card is sweet. It doesn't require combat damage. It just requires the ring tempting you. And
Again,
all you have to do is just trigger it by having a creature die under your control.
Right.
And you're going to ramp. You're going to ramp. You're also going to fill up some graveyards, which nowadays is just kind of a bad idea, to be honest.
Unless you are going to win the game that way.
Yeah.
Which we will talk about. But there's a couple of sweet, like flavorful The Ring Tempts You cards to put in here. Gollum Patient Plotter is perfect. Obviously, it's Gollum, and when he leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you, but he's also a sack outlet. It's black, sacrifice a creature, return Gollum from your graveyard to your hand, activate only as a sorcery.
Yeah, it's very good, so you can always get the Sméagol Helpful Guide triggers.
So you can sack a creature and get Gollum back to your hand, and you'll be the ring will tempt you as much as possible.
Yep. Shortcut to Mushrooms, which is the funniest card name ever.
It's so good.
1 in a green for an enchantment. When Shortcut to Mushrooms enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Very good. And at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So it's a free ring temp, and then again, you want to have creatures leaving the battlefield, and it cares about doing it on your turn. In this case, it's just about permanence, so it could be, by the way, it could also be the fetch lands that you steal from someone else.
Yep, absolutely could be. The best Ring Tempts You card in this deck is Dunedain Rangers. Sorry, I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce it.
It is.
Nailed it. 3 and a green for a human ranger. She's a 4/4. They're a 4/4. Landfall.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
There's 2 of them. Yeah, there's rangers. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you don't control a ring bearer, the ring tempts you. So this deck wants to have landfall make a token. This deck wants to have sack outlets.
Sack outlets, yeah.
And this deck wants to have its commander in play. And there is an infinite combo, if you're wondering.
Hooray.
If you have Sméagol in play and you have Dunedain Rangers, and let's just say you have a Rampaging Baloths, because everybody knows that card.
Yep, whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, you create a 4/4 green beast creature token.
Yes. So a land comes into play. You're going to trigger the Dunedain Rangers, and you are going to trigger the Baloths. First, you make... Yeah, you order your stacks, your triggers. You're going to put the Dunedain Rangers on the bottom. You're going to make a beast, and then you're going to make that beast your ring bearer.
Right.
Then that's going to trigger Sméagol, which says whenever you're tempted, you go find a land from your opponent's deck.
Oh, okay.
We'll go, but before that trigger resolves, you sacrificed your beast ring bearer.
Right, the ring bearer from the Rampaging Baloth.
Right,
So you no longer have a ring bearer.
So you get rid of it. Then you let the Sméagol trigger resolve. You get a land from your opponent's deck. You make a beast, make it the ring bearer, and we go again.
Yeah, so you can actually kind of mill someone out entirely, right?
Mill everybody out with
you
this.
can mill every single player out because you're just flipping through cards in their library until you find a land. You will eventually get to a point where there are no more lands left in their library, or their last card is a land.
Right.
And every other card's going into the graveyard.
So it's you could have a couple of cards left if they have like a bunch of non-land cards on the bottom of their library. Like
you still until you find a land.
Until you
right?
find one.
Yeah,
so you won't guaranteed mill everybody out, but you will deck most of their library.
Yeah.
Doing this combo. Not to mention you'll have infinite dies triggers. You'll have like as many lands are in your opponent's deck.
Right.
Dies triggers and ETB triggers and landfall triggers.
Yeah, you'll basically just keep going until there's not a single land left in anyone's deck.
Yep. Which is sweet.
Yeah, that's super sweet. So other cards like Greensleeves, Morrow Sorcerer does the same thing. Land enters the battlefield, you make a 3/3 Badger. Scoot Swarm, land enters, you make something. There's a lot of cards basically that do something like that. Field of the Dead is another great example of that as well.
Bloodghast has landfall return from the graveyard to the battlefield. So Bloodghast doesn't make tokens, but does essentially the same thing. With
Gives
free
you a
sack
card
outlet.
to become, the most important part here is having an instant speed sack outlet.
Right.
Because you need to be able to get rid of the card that becomes your ring bearer for the Dunedain Rangers to keep tempting you.
And you have to do that before the land enters the battlefield.
Yeah.
Okay. More landfall playoffs. This is a landfall deck. Probably you're going to run the typical Lotus Cobra's Tireless Trackers. Probably the new Nissa Resurgent Animist.
Yeah, if you can afford it, hate that.
Yeah, it's so expensive.
Because no one opened the set.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like the best card from the set.
card.
Tireless Provisioner, Lotus Cobra, Obnixilis the Fallen. Lots of different ways to do it here.
Yeah, it just turns the lands into value. We know how to do that.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of mana in this deck. You're never going to have to worry about lands as long as you can get Temptation.
If you don't want to worry about the Ring Tempts You thing and you just want to deal with like I want to make sure a creature has died on my turn and Golem will trigger once each turn, that's a fair way to do this. You could make it more of a graveyard tokeny deck. And that's going to be cards like Bitter Blossom and Ophiomancer, stuff that makes a token every turn that you can sack and keep going for value.
Jadar, Gold Killer of Nephalia, also gives you a free low token to do that with. I like night soil or fungal plots for this because you can exile creatures from graveyards to make tokens. Oh, including
you're milling your opponents, and you can interact with their graveyard that you are giving them a lot of value from.
Yeah, that's the thing I think you have to be aware of here, which is probably why you're running your Bajuka Bogs and any other exile graveyards, because I've seen games where it's like, I'm playing a mill deck and everyone's like, cool, no problem. And there's two blue players at the table that you can just watch to begin salivate as they realize that all of their dreams are going to come true without them having to do it themselves.
Yeah, they're like, where's my Mizzix Mastery? There it is.
Cool, look at my graveyard. Oh, wow.
Who did that?
Oh, no, you milled my win con? What will I ever do?
Yeah. So I think this deck is going to care about stuff dying. We got Death Reap Ritual, which is morbid. If a creature died, you draw a card. Then there's lots of like removal spells that are better with morbid. I think the most flavorful one is Malicious Affliction.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's got an affliction for the ring. It's black for an instant. It's when you cast Malicious Affliction. If a creature died this turn, you may copy it and choose new targets for the copy. And it says destroy target non-black creature.
Caravan Vigil is sweet.
Yeah, right?
Green for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic. You can reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. But morbid, you can put that card on the battlefield instead if a creature died this turn.
Right? That card should see more play, right?
I think so. I mean, it's tough. I think
obviously it doesn't go in every deck.
Yeah, but if your deck has creatures dying in general,
like
and reliably, especially if you're sacrificing them or using them as fodder or using them for the Altar's Reap type effects where you're drawing cards off of them, this card seems really sweet.
Really sweet.
Tragic Slip as well has that morbid trigger to give a creature -13/13.
And it's also fairly flavorful.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to finish the game with mill, you could
mill them.
There's a bunch of ways to do that. Altar of the Brood seems really good because you're getting lands and milling them more, and then they're making the token and milling them more.
More.
Mesmeric Orb, always good. This is my favorite solution for milling them.
What is that?
Collective Voyage, which is
interesting.
flavorful, but it's green and sorcery. Starting with you, each player may pay any amount of mana. Each player searches his or her library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the total amount of mana paid this way. Put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle his or her library.
So everyone's like, yeah, I'll pay 5.
Yeah, I want to get as many lands as possible. And let's do it. And then you just remove a bunch of mill checkpoints from their deck, so it mills more.
Even more each time.
You do it.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Once you're at that point, then you're going to want to start reanimating stuff from their graveyards. So cards that specifically can get creatures out of other players' graveyards.
Yeah.
Reanimate, Ghoul's Night Out, Rise of the Dark Realms. That seems like your win con, really.
Oh, yeah.
Command the Dread Horde, Breach the Multiverse. All are very powerful in this deck, and definitely the way where you just go, cool, thanks for giving me half your deck. I'm now going to take the best stuff out of all of it.
Yeah. It gives you a ton of selection and turns into a pretty sweet little graveyard deck. Also, you run Sir Conrad the Grim and Dreadhound, which deal damage to people when creatures enter the graveyard, no matter where they come from.
Sir Conrad could just hit someone for like 10.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Dreadhound does the same thing. Whenever a creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from a library, each opponent loses 1 life.
So you're going to be milling and killing your own creatures. Not milling. You're going to be killing your own creatures, and then people are going to be milling. So that's really good.
Yeah, I think both of those cards are going to be automatic includes, as will Bloodchief Ascension, which is terrifying in a mill deck.
And super expensive, unfortunately.
Sure is.
But very good as well. Dauthi Voidwalker seems like a great way to just make sure those cards never hit the graveyard. They disappear, and you get them under the Voidwalker, which is really good.
Notably, Douthi's not as good with the reanimation strategy.
No.
Still very good if you're not doing the reanimation strategy.
Yeah, I think Douthie is also one of those cards now. I don't just slam dunk it on the table if I need. I actually wait and think, do I need stuff in the graveyard? And if I don't, then Douthie comes out, and then you can start doing this. I just recently built a Phoenix deck, and I was like, does Douthie work in this deck or not? And it's like, actually, it does. You just play it when you don't want people to see stuff in the graveyard.
You have to be in control of it.
You have
but
to be
I
in
do
control
think
of
it's
it,
pretty sweet in mill decks, especially if you're worried about Eldrazi.
Yeah.
This last one is sick, especially if you're doing the reanimation thing. It's Lorcan, Warlock Collector, 5 black for a devil flying 6/6. When a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you may pay life equal to its mana value. If you do, put it onto the battlefield under your control. It's a warlock in addition to its other types. What? If a warlock you control would die, exile it instead. What?
Whoa. Are you going to go to Lorcan this year?
Oh, yeah. Love Lorcan.
Yeah, Lorcan is great. Everyone dresses as a warlock.
Huge wings. It's really hard to get around.
Yeah.
Everybody's wings are bumping into each other.
Well, speaking of wings, let's talk about a creature that flies around on wings. It's our next commander. It's the Witch King of Angmar. I played against this one time in the limited format, and I
brutal.
hated it.
It's
it was
so
the most.
awful.
This is probably straight up the most slam dunk. One of the most slam dunk instant win the game cards there can be.
I mean, it's a mythic, but it's worth it.
And that's all we're going to say about it. Everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast. All right, the
we're
Witch
gonna
King
say thank you, too.
3 black, and we're going to say thank you to a 5/3 Wraith Noble with flying. Whenever one or more creatures deals combat damage to you, each opponent sacrifices a creature that dealt combat damage to you this turn. The Ring Tempts You. So basically, nothing can hit you because they have to die.
Yeah, so if they hit you with 3 creatures, they have to sack one of them.
Yeah.
And then the Ring Tempts You.
And then the worst part about this card is you can discard a card and give the Witch King of Angmar indestructible until end of turn, tap it.
Why?
Wow. It's the Witch King of Angmar. You can't kill it.
It's so good.
Yeah, so really, really good. Forces people to stop attacking you, otherwise they sack their good stuff. And then you can't kill it because it gets indestructible. All you have to do is sack a card.
So this is sort of a weird commander. It doesn't really say anything, like, it's not super proactive. It's more of a reactive commander.
Yeah, what do you want to do with this?
So, and you can't really like force your opponents to attack you in black. That's not really a thing you can do, but you can make them want to attack you.
Ooh la la.
Because you have the Monarch.
You're just playing evil characters deck then.
This deck is brutal. Court of Ambition in this deck is 2 black for an enchantment. Enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the Monarch instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards.
Oh, rough.
So you play Court of Ambition, you're the Monarch.
No one wants to swing at you.
They do not want to attack you to take the Monarch because they don't want to sack their creatures.
Yeah.
But on their upkeep, if you still have the Monarch, you discard 2 cards or pay 6 life.
Yeah, and not to mention if you are able to get to full-on ring power, then you're making them lose 3 life every time you're swinging at them with the Witch King too.
And if they have even if they take the Monarch from you, they've done it, they sacrificed the creature, they paid the cost.
They still have to. Yeah.
You have a 5/3 flying that could be indestructible.
Yeah.
Coming back to take the Monarch from you again.
And the Court of Ambition thing still happens. Everyone's still losing 3 life every single upkeep.
And discard a card.
Yeah. So that definitely makes you public enemy number 1, even if you're not.
This is a bad guy deck.
Even if you're not the strongest person at the table, people will not like you for doing this sort of thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about more cool things you could do.
Yeah, Monarch is great. I liked how you put Starscream on here.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, whenever you draw a card, if you're the Monarch, target opponent loses 2 life, which is pretty good.
They have got to take the Monarch from you.
Yeah, and then you give them the Monarch back, but then you just hit them with Starscream, right? Yeah.
Custody Lich says, whenever you become the Monarch, target player sacrifices a creature. Why not? And if we're playing with the Monarch, let's play with the initiative.
Oh my gosh. This is also just the most annoying deck to play at this point.
Ravenloft Adventurers. 3 and a black for a human rogue assassin. It's a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. If a creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile it, and you put a hit counter on it.
Yay.
That's good. Whenever it attacks, if you've completed a dungeon, defending player loses 1 life for each card they own and exile with a hit counter on it.
So cool. This is graveyard hate in a way.
It's graveyard hate, and then when things get sacrificed, they don't get that dies trigger. Yes,
exile
it. Yeah, instead exile it. Yep, and put a hit counter on it. So they don't get dies triggers. It doesn't go to the graveyard, and it's just gone, and you're punished for it.
Yeah, and you get to just slowly drain them of life as well.
There's a ton of cards that are black and say that you get the initiative on it. The best one is Saravok's Tome.
Yep.
It's like Ravenloft Adventurer and Saravok's Tome.
Yeah, you get to add 1 mana, but if you have the initiative, you add 2 mana instead, so it's 4 mana for a 2 mana rock, and then you can pay 3 and tap exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card, and you can cast it without paying its mana cost, but only if you've completed a dungeon.
Seems likely. Like, nobody's going to want to come for you because you're like, oh, bad things will happen if you do.
Yeah, that's true.
Seems like a really funny Coveted Jewel deck to me as well.
Coveted Jewel is just a funny card.
So it enters, you draw 3 cards, it taps for 3 mana, it's
And
6
then-
mana itself, and whenever one or more creatures with an opponent control attack you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel. Untap it.
Ooh. Now, I guess this doesn't work so great if they have like just a 1/3 Skulk or whatever their own that has because they're just like whatever they just get rid of it. I want to draw 3 cards, the Coveted Jewel.
Yeah, you
but
just
on
take
top
it
of
back.
everything else that you have going on, yeah, this is kind of fun. Just public enemy number 1.
Oh yeah, I like these things that are like, come attack me. If I like, they're great things happen if you attack me.
See what happens.
But also you have terrible things that are like, if you attack me, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, because no mercy, 2 black enchantment. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, destroy it.
Yeah.
Gross. Revenge of Ravens. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker, that creature's controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So these are just like punish effects for having them a swing at you.
You could also encourage them to attack elsewhere with things like Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, draw a card. So you're like, okay, you could get the Monarch from me, or you go over there.
If we want to join forces with Warhammer again, Triarch Stalker is a creature that makes you choose at the beginning of combat an opponent, and then creatures attacking the last chosen player have menace. So this is a good way to be like, no, you just get free swings on someone else. If you are not actually the archenemy, this is really good for pointing someone else out that is the archenemy.
Yeah, also just giving your stuff menace.
Yeah.
This is a sack deck. If you want to play big bad deck, you put Turgid in it, you put it that betrays in it, blah, 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 blah. Okay.
Yeah, because now even if they're like the only way we can kill you is by swinging you with 5 things, I'll sack my worst thing.
Yeah.
But then
you get that thing.
Yeah. Gross.
Okay. It's also a madness deck. You've got a free discard outlet in the command zone.
That's right. And you can do it to make your commander indestructible.
Yeah. So you play stuff like Big Game Hunter, which has madness for black, and it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. It can't be generated. The nice thing about free discard outlets like your commander is all of this stuff can be done at instant speed.
Yeah.
These are creatures that have flashed into play out of nowhere. Shadowgrange Archfiend is one of the best ones. It's a 7 mana 8/4, but it's madness for 3, 2 and a black, and pay 8 life. So when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures sacrificed this way.
Yeah, so you're probably going to gain a lot of that life back. And then you got Call to the Netherworld, which returns creature cards from graveyard to your hand. Mana's cost 0 from under the floorboards, making X zombies, and then gaining a bunch of life. I think it's going to be really important in this deck to have some amount of life gain and a lot of card draw. Because if you're just discarding stuff to your commander because everyone's trying to kill it, it's going to put you at a card disadvantage. So you want to be able to make sure you can make up for that.
Right. And Madness turns those discard cards into spells.
Yep,
so it's basically cast a spell and your commander gains indestructible.
Yeah. Archfiend of Spite is really nuts because you can Madness it for 3 black, and it's a creature, so you can basically instant speed play it as a blocker. If someone decides to swing it, use the only way to kill you. Whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to Archfiend of Spite, that source's controller loses that much life unless they sacrifice that many permanents. Spiteful.
Brutal.
And then for discarding cards, Bone Miser is really good, as is Archfiend of Ifnir, which can be a one-sided board wipe.
Yeah, whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control.
Gross.
Could also be a reanimator deck.
Yeah, this is mono black. You can do a lot
nuts.
of stuff. Yeah, you can go infinite stuff. You can go big mana stuff. You can go just straight nasty value board wipes.
I could see it just being mono black control and being like a really scary don't hit me until I have enough mana to kill you thing.
Yeah, and it's a sweet way to like, here's a win con that isn't as brutal as Turgid.
Yeah.
It's just the Witch King of Angmar.
Yeah. I think this card's sweet. I love that in this set they were like, the bad guys do bad guy stuff.
Yeah.
And it feels bad. Like when you're playing against them, you're like, ugh, I gotta beat this guy.
It does. Okay,
All right.
let's move on and talk about our favorite ring and our most powerful ring commander from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, if you like one of the cards more than the commanders, we could talk about those too. But
Yeah, it's sucky because I was going to just choose the exact same ones that you did.
oh, it's so cool though. We can talk about how great he is.
Okay, let's do it. My favorite ring commander and yours as well is Sméagol, helpful guide. Oh, yes, why me? Well, you're just fun. He just grabs lands from everyone's decks. He's giving you tons of value. You want to sacrifice and do cool things. I have not found, well, until Shelob came out, I have not found a black-green commander that really speaks my
I'm
name.
the same way. I've trouble with Golgari as well.
Yeah, and every time I draft Golgari too, I'm just like, it's not that much fun. And finally, both in this set, 2 cards have me going like, oh, this is interesting. So Sméagol definitely is up there for me. He's just really fun.
I agree. The Sméagol's definitely my favorite out of the bunch that we talked about. It's super neat. You can do some very strange things, and you can build a really flavorful deck. We know Sméagol. Sméagol's one of these characters that you're like, he's a bad guy, but he's doing his best.
But he's a good guy. When he's Sméagol, he's helpful.
He's a helpful guy.
He's
and
not
he's
Gollum.
Just trying to he's doing his very, very best out there.
And I
in
love
a big,
Andy
tough
Serkis
world.
too. So.
Oh my God. He
Maybe-
could have won all the awards.
I don't know if the editors can do this, but can we get an altar of Sméagol, but it's just Andy Serkis in that weird gray suit he wore when he was doing it? Just looking crazy. That would be, don't do it, editors. That's a lot more work than you need to do.
Yeah.
And then now the most powerful ring commander from Lord of the Rings.
Is it Sméagol?
From this specifically. There's,
From the 5
the
that we
Ring
talked
Tempts
about.
You, yeah. It might be Sméagol.
Witch King is close, but it's so scary that it feels like you don't, you just
Yeah.
aren't going to get any ground unless you have a very powerful deck.
It's that or like maybe Bilbo, because I'm sure there's some infinite combo we didn't think about that it could just pop off and then just get infinite, like in the same way that sometimes Norn the Wary decks can be really powerful randomly.
Yeah, it's just, and it's also just blue-red treasures, which is just a good...
Yeah, it's a good baseline
That's just
to start
a good
from.
archetype.
Yeah.
It's powerful and beloved.
And beloved.
It's a tough call. I think Witch King is definitely one of those cards that's going to feel the most powerful when you're across from. But Sméagol is going to be one of those commanders that you're like, gosh, this deck is
annoying.
Wild.
Yeah, what is happening?
Yeah.
All right. To the listeners, what do you think about the Ring Tempts You mechanic? Both the cards we talked about in the beginning as well as the commanders we talked about. Do you think it's a flavor fail because there's no downsides? Is it better or worse than it looks? Are you going to be building any of these commanders around the Ring Tempts You? Or maybe there's another commander that doesn't even have the Ring Tempts You on the commander itself, but you want to build that commander because you're going to put in cards that we talked about today. Let us know in the comments on YouTube, on Twitter, wherever you may find us on the World Wide Webs. You can also hit up our podcast helpline, which doesn't exist, by calling 1-800 does not exist.
Jimmy's phone number.
Call my phone number. Yeah, I'll definitely pick up.
Which is on the screen below.
And if you want to pick up cards, it's at my phone number, cardkingdom.com/command. That's the place to pick up your Lord of the Rings cards. There are so many cool cards, and there's a bunch of sweet treatments for all of them. Sweet treats for the boys and girls. There are just different ways for these cards to be represented, and they look really cool. I really like the ones with the ring outline on them. So if you're looking for one of the sweet sort of like hallmark cards from this set, guaranteed you're going to be able to find one of those versions probably
on full art ones that like make a little painting.
Oh, it's so cool. On cardkingdom.com/command, or just go for the regular versions as well. You can go foil, non-foil. Cardkingdom.com/command has a huge inventory. Guaranteed there's going to be a ton of demand for this set. So get your orders in soon, especially if you think there are some cards that people are overlooking. Those are always the fun ones to pick up. Like when I picked up a bunch of Arachnogenesis after it showed up, and now that card just continues to go up in value.
They have got to reprint this card.
Yeah, I hope they do. But until then, make sure you check out cardkingdom.com/command for all of the new Lord of the Rings stuff, as well as old stuff when you're out there building your new decks.
All right. And once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them. You're going to need to store them, sort them. Go to ultrapro.com/command for some of the highest quality Magic accessories in the business. Plus, they have the official Magic licensed art, which for this set in particular is a huge deal. There's a
Big
ton
time.
of playmats. The art is stunning. There's so many cards that I looked at. I was like, I just want to build that because look at it.
Yeah.
Look at that Gandalf. Look at that Galadriel. And they also have these cool treatments on their playmats that sort of go above and beyond from what a normal playmat looks like. This is like
Holofoil.
the shiny hollow foil ones. So get in there quick. Make sure that you are getting the art that you want at ultrapro.com/command.
All right, cleanup set. Big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone. We got Craig Blanchett, Damon Lenz, Arthur Meadowcroft, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Josh Murphy, Jake Bosch, Jordan Pridgeon, Sam Waldo, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Mitch Trafford, Evan Limburger, Gabriel Pozos, Megan Yip, Eric Lem, and Josh Lee Kwai. And of course, Gollum Helpful Guide, Sméagol Helpful Guide. He helps out as well here.
He's been cutting together this episode.
Thanks everyone so much for watching, and check it out right here.
Yeah,
Do you want the ring? Do you want the ring? What?
yeah.
What if?
Whoa,
I didn't do it. Well, you want the ring? Ha ha ha! Magic trick.
Whoa.
The ring is gone.
Whoa.
And it's back. Okay, that was dumb. I was waiting the whole episode to do that. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.